our future is in danger. Our generations may not prosper. But the danger is not from some external threat. The danger is because of our own ignorance. We take life for granted. Birth is a wonderful miracle. Unfortunately, we just take it as a commonplace event. What do we say? We say, बच्चा ही पैदा किया, कौन सी बड़ी बात है, रोज पैदा होते हैं. The danger, the ignorance that we are showing is in the statistics from United Nations, which is telling us that 44% of Pakistani children under the age of 5 years are suffering from stunted growth due to chronic malnutrition. And this number is set to rise. So just imagine half of your children suffering from stunted growth with all the problems associated with it. Doesn't that alarm you? Don't you get worried about it? I have seen it firsthand. I graduated from Dow Medical College 25 years ago, but soon after my graduation, I went to the United Kingdom and I became a consultant obstetrician and gynecologist. But for more than 10 years, I kept coming back to the mountains of KPK because I just failed to admit and failed to understand why. Still in the 21st century, our young mothers in labor are still transported, strapped to charpais, put on shoulders and taken to hospitals and places of care. Majority of these young mothers died, along with their babies in their tummies. And if the babies were born, they died also. And statistics prove that. UNICEF published in 2018 that Pakistan became #1 in the world for the highest number of death of newborn babies. That's more than South Sudan, Mali, Chad. Why are our babies dying? Okay, I'll bring another statistic. Pakistan is in the top 10 countries in the world for the highest number of deaths of mothers in labor or pregnancy. So I've talked about 3 things: stunted growth, newborn mortality, and mothers' deaths. 3 different topics, no relation with each other. Or is there a connection? That is what we need to establish tonight. Let's look at the deaths of our babies, the top 3 causes. If you look at the first cause, that is because the babies are just being born with low birth weight or just very premature. The cause of that is, majority of the cases, not in the baby itself. It is because our mothers are malnutrition. Our mothers are suffering from iron deficiency anemia, which leads to poor brain development. Therefore, the baby is born low birth weight and dies. And if it doesn't die, it will suffer from stunted growth. Second cause, lack of oxygen during birth or soon after birth. That is because our mothers are getting poor obstetric care from unskilled birth attendants. And if you look at the third cause, infection or sepsis leading to the deaths of babies, it is directly related to the second cause. Again, unskilled birth attendants who do not have access to the clean birthing kit. That exposes our babies to a host of infections, so that the simple act of cutting a cord becomes like a life hazard, and the baby dies of infection. And if that doesn't kill it, then the other cause of infection is bottle feeding. Yes, even if you clean your bottles, boil your bottles, they still give rise to infection in the babies. Okay, let me simplify things. So let's just feed our mothers, deliver them with skilled birth attendants, and keep the babies away from bottles. We're sorted, simplified, problem sorted. Unfortunately, not so simple. 40 million Pakistanis do not have access to clean toilets. Either there are no toilets and they go in the fields, or there are toilets, but the unclean water from the toilets is not disposed of properly. So where does it go? Under the earth, it mixes with our clean water, and the bacteria goes into our clean water reservoirs. We put pumps in that water, pump it up and drink the water with bacteria. Or the same untreated water is used to irrigate our crops, vegetables and fruits. And then our children eat and drink this. The bacteria, called E. coli, enter into the tummies of our children and babies and totally destroy their immune system. This is called environmental enteropathy. Now the children cannot absorb any nutrients, whatever good food you give them, and will not reach their full growth potential. That is called stunted growth. And the problem is not sorted just by getting people access to toilets. What we need is regulatory guidelines for sanitation. We need infrastructure of sanitation all across Pakistan. And so that we do not let this water also get to be used as irrigation water for our crops. Let me bring in another dimension. So our babies are dying because the mothers die. Why would the mothers die? Briefly, I will tell you. They die because of the same unskilled birth attendant killing them during labor. They die because the same anemic, malnourished mother, when she has a little bit of bleeding, she will die due to cardiac arrest after birth. And of course, the high blood pressures which we don't recognize, which we don't treat, would kill our mothers. So I hope that you can now establish some connection between these three problems of maternal deaths and newborn deaths and stunted growth. It is pertinent here to mention that our current government is trying its best to address these three problems. But what we need is that certain more evidence-informed measures that will accelerate the process of this improvement and save lives in a quicker way. I would like to advise 3 macro-level interventions and some micro-level interventions. The first macro-level intervention would be, what Pakistan needs is the development and implementation of Pakistan Women's Health Guidelines. They would encompass both obstetrics and gynecology. What these guidelines do is they have got evidence-informed measures in them. They are not based on personal preferences or drug company influenced. They uphold best evidence and research. Let me give you an example. The WHO has got guidelines for countries like Pakistan. Now, those guidelines have got in them that our mothers, when they deliver, we need to give them injection carbetocin, which stops the bleeding immediately. Unfortunately, because we don't have it in our guidelines, this injection is not even registered in Pakistan 3 years later. The second intervention that we can do is to please use all the monies that come in, either from the government or from the international sector, to be under one umbrella for maternal mortality, neonatal mortality, and stunted growth, so that all of this money can be generated towards projects which are evidence-based and actually bring about better change. And the third intervention is to please increase institutions which train skilled birth attendants according to international standards, so they can help save our mothers and our babies. This dictum is not coming from personal preference. This is what works. So in the NHS in the UK, the maternal mortality ratio, which is actually a ratio which tells you about the deaths of, about the health of mothers in a country, is only 10 per 100,000. 10 per 100,000. In Pakistan, it is 178 per 100,000 live births. If you want me to give you an example of Asia, then Sri Lanka is a shining example. By using these 3 interventions, their mothers die only 36 per 100,000. But I honestly believe that if you leave things to governments, then you don't get so much success until each and every Pakistani feels this as their own problem. So, okay, I said that the top cause of death is low birth weight. How can each and every Pakistani improve the birth weight? Simple. Just by opening your hearts, your homes, your kitchens to feed the pregnant women. The Prime Minister has got an excellent example of the Panahaga. It is open for travelers and laborers. Why can't we open it for pregnant women? Why can't we have a little sign for them as they are nurturing our next generation? Similarly, you can use your sadaqah to actually develop clean birthing kits. They've just got these 7 things inside them, and you have to ask your pharmacists or your doctors to make them for you, and please distribute them to pregnant women. And you say, Khala, Masi, whenever you have a delivery, please give this to your birth attendant. And that is going to reduce the neonatal deaths and the maternal deaths. Please support breastfeeding. Only 18% of Pakistani women breastfeed. We need to have a safe and secure environment where our mothers can breastfeed the next generation. We can, whether it is your homes, your offices, travel places, anywhere, we should make our mothers comfortable in breastfeeding the next generation. It should be in your maternity policies, and you should incentivize breastfeeding in your policies. And the other thing that we can all do, is to have a network of transport, which is very focused in transporting our mothers in labor. We did that in the mountains of KPK. Very simple idea. You ask any man with a van or any means of transport, and you tell him that whenever a woman or her family calls you to please transport a woman in labor, you'll just go there with your transport and you will get her to a place of care. Each one of you can improvise and offer your transport into transporting mothers to hospitals. Why can't Pakistan be the first country in the world where these large transport organizations that we use every day, they can advertise that we will transport mothers in labor for free or subsidized rates? I would like to say over here that our beloved Prophet ﷺ, when somebody asked him, who deserves my kindness the most? And he said, your mother, your mother, your mother. For me, that just translates into pregnancy, childbirth, and breastfeeding. If we as Pakistanis decide that we are going to look after our mothers in these 3 stages, I promise you, we can reduce our maternal mortality rates, we can reduce our newborn rates, and we can reverse stunted growth. Peru has done it, Thailand has done it, so many other countries have done it. So we can also do it. I call upon each and every one of you, the engineers out there, to please work on sanitation guidelines, to please work on how we can improve the infrastructure of sanitation in Pakistan. I call upon the entrepreneurs in this house, all over Pakistan, use your time, energy, money to engage with the government, with non-government organizations, and the agricultural sector, how we can help to improve the sanitation, how we can help to have these little projects of improving maternity, maternal health, and neonatal health. If we all do this together, we can prove to the world that Pakistan, against all odds, reduced their maternal mortality and neonatal mortality and absolutely eradicated stunted growth. बस आपने घबराना नहीं है. Thank you so much. Thank you.